of your highest calling. Be the hope of a new day dawning. We're the ones who can make a difference. Let's stand together. Share your gifts with the world that's waiting for a change that we're all creating. It's a moment for our greatness. Let's stand together now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to AGNT Speaks. It is a delight to gather together in consciousness with you right here and right now in this time and space, at this point in your life and at this point in our collective experience. We are here as your leadership council from the Association for Global New Thought. And we're here for a conscious conversation and a mindful moment every week, bringing to you spiritual principles, spiritual practices to help you show up for the world within you and the world around you in conscious and mindful ways. So it is my delight. I'm Rev Erin McCabe, and I serve at Unity Village Chapel on grounds at Unity Village, Unity headquarters. And it is my delight every week to host these conversations and to be with you right where you are. There is never a lack of something to discuss, never a lack of something where we can benefit from applying principles. So I'm just really grateful that our AGNT leadership team and friends of AGNT come together for AGNT Speaks. And I want to give a shout out to the New Thought Network for hosting us. So the New Thought Media Network is hosting AGNT Speaks now. And so shout out to you, Robert Brzezinski. You are amazing, and you are supporting so many conscious conversations and conscious broadcasts. So if you are someone that is part of a spiritual community, or you have something that you're doing and you want to get it out to the world of New Thought in a greater way, go ahead and contact this man, because he is stepping into his power in service to movement of New Thought, making sure that we are all connected, we're all on the same page, and we all have access to the most powerful New Thought principles and broadcasts. So thank you again. And now it is my delight to be one of my very besties in ministry, my friend and an incredible leader, Reverend Kitrell Ross. He serves out at Unity Sacramento. He is the spiritual leader there and the director there. And he has an incredible community, and they're always involved with something, and I would say they're always involved with something big, but this man is a mover and a shaker. If you've heard him, if you've looked at his books or studied his books and his work, you know that he was born and bred in Unity. He is a student of Johnny Coleman. I lean on him myself, and just in the last months, my spiritual community was impacted by some of the gifts that he gave me. And so I shared Rev Kev, I shared in one of my recent talks about your comments to me on I am with you and for you, and how impactful that was for me. And I have heard people talking about that since, that it really hit home for them, and that they're sharing that message with others that are important to them. So I think we all need that these days, right? There's a lot going on, and people are finding it challenging to stay focused on principle, to engage in spiritual upliftment so that they can be grounded and centered, you know, from what we hear on the news to what's going on in people's private lives. I don't know, you know, what you have going on right now and what you're present to in people's lives, but there are a lot of folks that I know, especially lately, that are just going through those very impactful moments that are very, very challenging, both personally and collectively.
Absolutely, Rev Erin. And you and I would know, and people like us who are in ministry are on the receiving end of that freight train of the after effects of the pandemic, because people come to see us and share and unload and are in search for ways and tools and tips. And so yeah, it's super challenging to be in ministry right now. We are. And it was super challenging to move through the pandemic in ministry, holding a community together, the spiritual community, and then the larger community, and then the family. So all of those dynamics were a big opportunity to not just practice, but the practice met the moment of truth. The pandemic was that thing that we had been practicing for. So all the years of praying and meditating and studying and having these conscious conversations met with a real moment in time where we were called to be the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that there is an onslaught of of opportunity to be the thing. The problem is many of us don't have backup support. So if you're a leader in ministry right now and you're on the front line serving and trying to be in that caring community and cultivating care and getting your arms around folks and standing people up, who ministers to the minister? Who's holding your arms up? Who's being your Aaron, so to speak? And so that's where I find myself. I'm blessed in some ways, but it's still very challenging. It's still very challenging.
I hear you on that. I've experienced the same thing, and I think as spiritual leaders, we don't often share that too much because our focus is to support others, not to kind of go get ourselves support. And with everything that's happened in the last 2 years, there's so many communities that have been hurt, so many frontline workers that have had such intense challenges that I would imagine most spiritual leaders have not really shared their own experience of how challenging it's been. But I have read a couple of articles and they brought me to tears because they really resonated. And it's not something that I would share or post. I shared it with my board, but it's not something that I share or post because I, wouldn't want to invalidate someone else's experience of struggle. Yet what we're talking about is self-care. What we're talking about is self-care and also self-care in extraordinary times. And that's for each of us in whatever roles that we play. And certainly as spiritual leaders, it's an interesting thing to navigate because I know so many that, and this article said it right, that it's like after 2 years and going in, and reopening. And I know you recently reopened, right? This Sunday.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And it's like there's all this energy of, oh, this is great. We're back together. Let's get back to everything immediately. And let's just power it up again like it was. And many of us have entirely different staffs. We have different slates of volunteers because of the circumstances around the last few years. The volunteers have shifted. Some people have relocated and changed their lives. Some people have become less involved, all this stuff. And so really there's so much shift and also the dynamics as far as different things like finances or ministry dynamics have shifted. And so it's really this reinventing. And for a lot of ministers and leaders, and I've heard this as well from, very good friends I have in the medical community, is that they're feeling wiped out. Like they're
Well,
feeling
come
like,
on, Rev. Come on now. Let's just face it. I think I think one of the greatest acts of self-care that leaders can um, uh, offer themselves is honesty and transparency about what's happening with you, with those with whom you serve. I think it's fair for them to know I'm having a difficult time. I think it's fair for them to know I could use more support around me. I need your prayer support to continue. We sit in the front seat of the cockpit of the 747. We see the lightning and the clouds, and by the time they feel the turbulence, we saw it coming. So there's at minimum a double impact of how we are um, uh, how we experience things in these times. And so absolutely, I think it's important that we break that fourth wall, right? We break that wall so that we become more relatable to the people that we serve. And in becoming more relatable to the people that we serve, people people can then tap into their own authenticity. Again, it's always about modeling. It's always about modeling. What are we modeling? We're modeling vulnerability. We're modeling, in the following the master teacher who said, "Of myself, I can do nothing." It's coming to that place of myself, I can do nothing. And in my own life, I'm very present to the fact that I need more tools. And I think I'm pretty good at what I do and all of that, and I need more tools.
Right?
I have run out of making it up as I go along. I am done with that. There comes a point where it's time to retool, refill, refuel in order to lead in a world that has changed. In my experience, I'm now ordained, and I know it might be shocking to you, but just given how good I look, but I've been ordained for 21 years. Okay. And the world has changed any number of times from the point of the ordination. And when I was ordained, I was more than prepared for the world that I entered at the point of my ordination.
Right,
Then I
because
was ordained
there weren't even websites then. Like you didn't even really have a website for a church.
Come on. Right. So, and then I was ordained a second time. And after the second ordination, the world changed again. I was in 2016. It's 2022 now. So the preparation that I had for ministry at that time, it's adjusted, it's changed, the world's changed significantly, of course, with the pandemic. So, and the demand for spiritual leaders has increased exponentially. And yet, how equipped
The
are we?
people have decreased, though. The number of people in ministry has just been the floodgates leaving.
Yes, and it didn't make it easier. If you're leading a community, it did make it easier. And if you're engaged in community in the ways that I am and you are, you're still interacting with the larger world. It made it harder. Actually, the pandemic made it harder to be in ministry because we had to, as you were talking about earlier, reinvent everything and still hold a center of inspiration for the community that was a part of, every week, and then the larger city and state and country where we make our marks.
Right.
So I believe right now leaders who want to thrive need to cry uncle, like, this is hard as nails for us. And if you want us to continue to be present and available and in front leading, support us personally. In personal ways, see to it that we have what we need to lead. There's a willingness there, you see. It's never not the lack of willing, but reframing for our congregants and our communities, our humanity, and letting them in to see that, I think is a big first step. It doesn't take away from the fact that we operate with principle. It doesn't take away from the fact, but you know what? Somebody even helped Jesus carry the cross. Okay, if we want to get literal for a minute.
Made dinner together, had a dinner together.
Yes. So it's that part of it. And yes, for me, we're just coming out of Resurrection Sunday, so Easter services were off the chain. It was big. It was all of the wonderfulness that we would have hoped it would be. And to maintain that momentum, right, we're going to require a whole lot more support, because now everybody's on fire. Those that we had a great service and we had great music and we had all the great reunion, kind of family reunion experience that you would want. And this was like our third service being reopened.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so the next step is how do we sustain that? So what we've done and are doing, we've created a futures committee. And the futures committee at Unity of Sacramento is looking at what does ministry look like in a post-pandemic world now? What are the needs for ministry? What makes us relevant? Um, what what role should we play specifically as our community? Geographically, what's the footprint that we're going to have given what we know about the world that we're living in? What types of leaders do we need to summon? What things do we need to deem obsolete?
Right?
Like,
That's
you know what
huge.
I'm saying? You know what
That's
I'm saying?
huge. Like what
Yeah.
wasn't working before that we no longer will reinvest our energy, not whether or not people want it, but it wasn't working. Like people weren't sourcing it because, we talked about self-care. We're talking about, supporting leaders, and that's everyone that's a leader. If you want them there, find out how to support them, whether they're a doctor that you go to, whether they're a minister, whoever it is. But those things are critical. And then support what you want to have thrive, because a lot of times we say we want something, we say we want a church open, we say we want an event or an activity, but then we don't put our money there, we don't put our service and our time there, we don't put our prayer and our intention there, we want someone else to do it. And we got to take a look at that. I think the energy has to be invested in what is working and what is not just wanted but sourced.
Yeah, and I think your point is spot on, and and right now, you got to make it about the leader as well. The person who is going to lead these changes has to be considered as an essential worker and ensuring that your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical well-being is needed. If there's this pause that leaders need right now, I mean, they're just a pause,
Right.
and it's important to have the community understand that this is necessary in order to move into our next iteration. Unlike many of the corporations who have, vast budgets to
And record profits during this
e-
time.
exactly. Spiritual communities are not necessarily in the same position, and therefore don't have the luxury of fluffing, fluffing and doing the quick reinvent and shifting and all. So
Right.
it takes time. And
And
I
like,
say,
don't always have a backup, don't always
correct.
have, like right now I have me, and I have people I can call in, but I've had all sorts of staffing changes. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel a little bit like I'm a little island. I have incredible volunteers and all of that, but like you said, it doesn't always feel like you can take that pause. Like it doesn't always
No, but
like
this is so what leadership looks like now is inventing a future that never was. And so if the spiritual community is to exist, this is how we frame this. If it is to exist, leaders will need to be healthy in order for that existence to occur. So we get to pause, we get to stop, and that comes from the leader to announce. And you inspire the rest of the leadership to get that. But I'm telling you, we experience in our own movement 50 retirements or resigning and several churches closing. Okay,
don't
50 people. Something is off about that, right? That means that leaders, spiritual leaders, are tracking with the same statistics in the greater secular world, if you will, where we're experiencing this great resignation. So when
Mhm.
you have spiritual leaders coming into a post-pandemic world saying, I'm out in mass, and that's not just within our movement, that's across
Yep.
America, in mass, we have to pause and say, wait a minute. If these people who have been willing to serve for 5, 10, 20, some 50 years, devote their entire lives, are no longer willing to press forward, a serious reevaluation gets to occur as to how to best support and buttress leaders for the world that's coming, the world that is, and now the world that's coming. And I demand that. I absolutely demand that, because I believe that it's necessary for me to, when I leave my community on a daily basis, I get to come home to a family. And when I come home to that family, their expectations of me for my family. And I want to be in a healthy way, to be present to my family and other things that I care about in my life. And so leaders get to be vocal and advocate for themselves at this time, for the health, for their own health, but for the long-term health and well-being of the spiritual community that they serve.
And you're right, because I mean, as far as modeling, where else but in spiritual community can you model what we can really look like when we have a profession, a job, work, whatever it is, so that it can be healthy. Like, we can't look out at the world to see how that's done in healthy ways, because all we see all over are dysfunctional systems, people overworking, people not living according to their priorities and their values, people feeling like their worth is based on their productivity, all of these things. And, when I look back at the last couple of years, there's no way to make up the time that was felt critical. It felt like urgency. Like, for me, it felt like I have to be there, on all these Sundays. I have to be with my people. I have to keep trying and figuring out how we're going to do this. I have to look at that. I have to support here. And so it felt like, I couldn't pull back at all and do some of the self-care that I needed to do. And then you get to here and it's like, well, you can't quite catch up. Like, you can never quite make that up. So all you can do, like you said, is stop in one moment and figure out what is healthy from here moving forward. And I know for me, it's a big challenge. Like, I did, what you said multiple times, as far as, letting my board know, I need help. I can't feel alone here. I need your help. I need them in these ways. I need support. I told my congregation, I told my community, and now I'm finding too that I'm just looking at how I do life and trying to work with myself on, I think you said it to me, someone else's urgency is not your emergency. Did you say that to me? Like,
Yes.
don't let someone else's urgency be your emergency. And I'm not talking about pastoral care and spiritual community. I'm talking about the onslaught of things that constantly come at you, that are vying for your attention, that everyone else thinks is a priority, structurally, behind the scenes, staff wise, all that. And for me, I'm really working on having that as like a mantra and bringing it back to me, to really ask, like, is this an emergency? Is this urgency? Because I can tend to just be constantly doing it, constantly looking at each thing as an individual case, right? And when you do that, it is nonstop. And then you don't have space at the end of the day to spend time with your family, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
always distracted. You're always pulled into something. You're always on your phone. You're always responding to something. So I'm working on telling everyone, okay, these are my contact days. These are the days that, unless it's urgent, these are the days for normal business to interact, have meetings, converse. And I am having to really look at my own habits and my own practices, because I generally tend to have really supportive boards that know that I, you know, give it 110%. So they are usually encouraging me to take care of myself. It's just whether or not I can see that I can let some things, like, I can't do everything all the time. The list is so long, and it's working with that to really, I don't know if it's self-worth or self-respect or self-value, but there is something in there that is looking to be grounded.
hmm Yeah, and it's just maturing. It's maturing in your role and maturing in your leadership journey. And one of the insights that I received over time, especially when people value what you have to offer, people will stand in line for it.
Mm.
And in that they value what you have to offer, they value the encounter, they value the time, they will stand in line. And in the meantime place, they start solving their problems because they're living in a place of expectancy. They're expecting something awesome to occur when they get to you. So now you've triggered in a person the ability to start resolving, start living in a place of expectancy. And whether they're conscious of it or not, they're looking forward rather than looking, situationally. They're lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where you are. So when you say, okay, I'm available in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month from now, and how many of us have to do that often with our medical practitioners, right? We can't get you in for another 2 months, Rev Kev. Unless it's an emergency, then you go through the emergency room. I won't be there, but whoever is, serves the emergency room, right? So that kind of thing. So people will stand in line for what they believe will bring value to their lives. And so then who really is it that needs to be disciplined?
Right.
It's me.
Right.
I'm not here to fix people.
Right.
So I want to check my need. I want to check my need to rescue. I want to check my need to fix and save and all of that, because I'm just available as an avenue through which others make their own discoveries.
Right.
And that takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah. And for me,
Um,
it's a lot of administrative. For me, the onslaught is more administrative, but it's the same thing of knowing balance,
mhm.
discernment, and like, does this really need my time right now? Because a lot of times it'll be like, here's all this administrative stuff, but there's a person. So it's like I always go like, okay, I can drop it when there's a person, but when there's not a person that needs me, I can consume my own time with the administrative stuff. And
Eh, eh,
I have had experiences where
how many years have you been in ministry now?
15.
Okay, so at 15 years in ministry, it's time to redesign that if you choose to have longevity. So, like, administrative is maybe that's 5% of what you do,
Oh,
because
I'm
that's
holding that
that.
vision. Kevin, yes.
Let me tell you, but this is in as much as we are influencers and everything else, we are not enslaved. We are powerful creators, manifestors, and all of that. We tend to, as leaders, prioritize ourselves last because of this kind of sacrificial sort of model we've been handed. And when we walk away from ministry, we walk away taking with us memories, but not much more than that. And so it is critical that we educate our communities on the real value of our presence in ministry. And the real value of your presence in ministry there is not, how much paperwork you can push and how many meetings you can organize and all of that. That is not why I would come there to see you. You know, I'm coming there to see your gifts shine in the brightest possible manner, the ones that they really sought you out for. And so reinventing yourself and in a way of self-care may look like I do 5% administration and the rest is ministry and congregational care And so let's figure out how to have that happen,
Right.
and I
Right.
would make that a priority,
Yeah.
right? And what shifts need to occur, what funds need to be raised, what plans need to be hatched, whatever that is, so that you can get the absolute best of me.
That's
You
good.
and I've preached this to myself in
Yeah.
order to, be where I am at this point. Um, so that it's like as much as I love my board, I know when we open the doors on Sunday morning, people are not coming there to meet my fantastic board. And I do have a fantastic board. They are coming to have an experience that will awaken them to their divine nature and charge them to be a force for good in the world. And my emphasis needs to be placed in areas that will do that, more and more.
Yeah.
And knowing that is a form of self-care.
That's right. That's
Hmm.
right.
Or
Oh,
or
what a
or
conversation.
choosing that even
Yes.
better.
Yes. So what a conversation. I think it's a good one. I think it's necessary. And I think that my hope for today is that everyone can find themselves in this conversation, that there is
Hmm.
something that we talked about today where you see yourself, like either you see a call to action to support someone that you love and appreciate, or you see a call to self-care, or expressing dominion over your own habits and your own internal systems. Reflection on what you have going on right now in life and what the last 2 years has been like. And like Rev Kev said, the future, looking at from right now, moving forward, what is calling me? What is functional? What is fantastic? What is the vision? How am I going to live into the future? And what will that look like for me? And doing that consciously. So we hope today was a fruitful and mindful experience for you. And thank you for being here with us, Rev Kev. Thank you for being here with us, everyone that has joined this broadcast today. We are here with AGNT Speaks each week at noon Central Live. Namaste.
Namaste.
Something great is happening. Love has taken hold and it won't let go of us now. Something here is calling us forward, upward motion.